Hey, welcome back to the podcast. My name is Tami, and I've got a great episode for you today. I'm talking about this idea, this concept of a path to growth, and how this helps shape our future. We can look back at the past, but one of the key factors of knowing your path to growth is understanding your dreams, your vision, your strengths, your weaknesses, your motivations. It's understanding you. And so I wanted to talk about it because it's so important that we really understand how God wired us, who God called us and created us to be, and then how to step in it. This path to growth is so important that we start to intentionally cultivate it. We intentionally look at how it's shaped us and where it's going to take us in the future. So listen in, and don't forget to join the Facebook group, Divine Destiny, Living a Purpose-Aligned Life, where next week we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about, it's a 5-day challenge or permission to pivot. The roadmap for professional moms to break free from self-imposed limitations and gain clarity on what they truly want to create. All right, let's do this. Hey, and welcome to the Full Weight of Joy podcast, the podcast for women who are done stressing about the weight of the world, of expectations and settling for status quo, and ready to step into the full weight of joy. Joy in the journey, whether up or down, joy through the life's challenges, and joy in loving your life right where you are, even though sometimes we feel like chucking it all and moving to Bali. It's for women who are ready to step into who God called them to be. He chose you to be in this world. He created you for a specific purpose. God called us to be the light on a hill, and by embracing who you are and whose you are, you can stand on that hill and shine. The best part, when you're standing next to another woman who's also on the journey, the world gets brighter. My name is Tami. I'm your host and a master certified life coach and a trained therapist. For over a decade, I've been helping women do just that. Step into who they're called to be and shine. Are you ready, friend, to start your journey? Let's do this.
Do you ever are you ever in a place where you can't write things down? Like whether it's the shower, whether you're driving, whether it's, you're just at a place that you are still and a creative moment hits you or a thought hits you that you you're compelled to explore, to write down, that you don't want to forget it. And that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this podcast for you today. This is why if it sounds like I'm in the car, it's because I am in the car. And I was driving silently. There's no kids in the car because they're at camp. I didn't turn on music. I didn't turn on a podcast. I was just sitting and praying. I was thinking about a, worship song. I was just being for a moment because it's early and I miss the times that there's nothing going on. And it's in the silence and in the quiet that these revelations come, or that these ideas, the creative juices start flowing, this idea of boredom, which I don't get bored. My mind goes enough to where if I'm just sitting silent, it wanders enough, it creates enough. I think and I read enough to where I always have something that I can think about, that I can ponder. And today, as I was driving, this whole idea of the path to growth, and this is not a new concept for me, but this is one that I was thinking about how important it is that we don't only reflect on where we've come from, that we need to look and take time and realize that every decision that we've made, good or bad, our choice or someone else's, choice, it's, because there's sometimes that we have to do something and we truly have no control. We have no option. We have to do it. But what we do control is what we think about it or how we show up in it. And I was thinking about this path to growth and how over the last couple of years, how much I've grown, I've shifted, how much I've fallen, how many times I've gotten back up, how many times that I did something and it shocked me that I was actually able to do it. And I attribute it to this idea of this path to growth. This, no matter what you have, you're doing, you've got to have a sense that it's a journey, that there's something more, that you're being refined, that you're being shaped, that what you've gone through, nothing can be wasted. Nothing is wasted. There's things that I am just learning now, of things that I went through in childhood things I remember being like 8 or 9 years old, thinking, what am I doing this? Or like, why am I learning this? Or why did this happen to me? And I look back now and I'm like, oh, guys, see what you did there. Has that ever happened to you? Have you ever had those moments where it's like, oh, I see why I had to go through that. I needed to learn it for this moment. Well, a path to growth is like that. And it's so hard because a lot of times we don't really know what the end game is. Like we don't know. And when it comes to doing your God dream, when it comes to stepping in obedience and taking this step towards your purpose, a lot of times what we think we're heading towards is something there's in the journey, it shifts, it changes, it morphs into something different. And it helps you get clarity. And it's one of those moments that I'm so grateful that I did allow God to shape me, because what I thought I wanted, if I would have gotten it, I would not, it's not what I needed. And God is a God of taking care of our needs. He's also a God who takes care of our wants and our desires. And He wants us to dream and He wants us to grow. My community group the other day, we were talking about this whole idea that if we were happy all the time and everything went well, we would not have any growth, that we wouldn't survive. And I reflected on there's a study, and I don't know much about the study. I don't know if it was in college or in high school. We talked about how there was an experiment done, and they put amoebas in like the ideal environment in this little petri dish. They had everything they needed to thrive. They had the food that they like. There was no foreign not victim. There's no foreign antibody. There's nothing in it to fight them. And all the amoebas over time, they flourished. And then quickly after that, they all died. And then they did a second petri dish, and they had the same amoeba, same type, and they introduced adversity. They had a little bit of struggle in there for them. And I don't know exactly what they added in there, but it was just enough. And that petri dish not only thrived, it survived, it grew, and it flourished. And the whole idea could be like put back on us as well. When we don't go through things, we stay stagnant. When we are not growing and we're actually going backwards. And there's a law. I need to do some more research on that, but it's talking about, the law that an object in motion stays in motion, and an object at rest stays at rest and then it goes on to, it's actually will go backwards and it will never reach its intended destination. And the thing is as long as you're in motion, as long as you're growing, as long as you're moving, I mean, you're going to hit your intended destination. You're going to do it. You're going to grow. You're going to go. You're going to make things happen. You can see how like it's going to start shaping who you are. But if we don't go through anything that we've got, we won't be who we are. We won't have what we have or not have, or whatever it is. And so as I was thinking about this whole idea of the path to growth, and this is a concept that I have intentionally been pouring into. This is something that I do with my clients. And we talk about, okay, what does the path look like for you? What is it that you want? Who do you need to be to get there? And what skills, what lessons do we need to learn in order to make it happen? And how can we ensure that every step that we take is actually on the path to growth versus on a path to a direction we don't want? Now, I'm not saying that we don't make mistakes. I'm not saying that we have missteps or that we always know the action or the next step to take. Because if we did always know the exact next step, or we knew the direction we were going, or we knew, I don't think it'd be as interesting and as fun. And I don't think that we would be, we wouldn't need faith as much as we really do. And so that's one of the things that when we're looking at the path to growth, we get curious about where we've come from, who are we, what are our strengths, what are our weaknesses, and then what do we want? And how do we create this? How do we get on this path to go and grow? And so I was thinking about what is the first step to creating this and understanding this path to growth. And this is why I think it's so, 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 so important that we know ourselves. because I can't grow in the same way my friends grow. I can't go in the same direction. I don't have the same dreams. I don't have the same strengths, the same weaknesses. I don't have the same desires. I have a friend who's an Enneagram 1 as well. I have a couple actually. But even though our motivations are the same, our dreams are not. Like God is so cool in that, how we, there's, you can find similarities in people, but then there's always that one thing that's different. That's one thing that makes them unique. And the one desire, the dream they have that puts them on a different trajectory. And so by understanding ourselves, my first tool is the Enneagram. I love it because it really does get down to business right away. I know that several people, there's a lot of memes. There's a lot, the Trendiagram is popular right now. But when it comes to wanting something different, when it comes to wanting a life that's different, having a purpose-aligned life, a purpose-aligned business, having this God dream that this, how can I say it? Like it is the deep knower that there's this thought, this unshakable thought, this unshakable desire that it doesn't make any sense, because rarely do the things that God asks us to do make sense to our logical or worldly mind. Rarely is it so explainable that other people are like, yeah, oh yeah, you should do that. Or yeah, that's exactly what God's telling you. So many times it's deep in ourselves and it just won't go away. And others are like, I don't understand. And that's okay. They don't need to understand. And I also, yeah, you just need to. Right? You get to discover the understanding. You get to discover what's going on and why and all the things. And so this path to growth, when you understand what's stopping you, so what are your core avoidances? You understand your motivations and your core desires, like what motivates you, what shapes your decisions. And then you understand the dream, the God calling, that deep in the knower, that voice that God's called you and said, hey, I want you to do this. I know you don't know what it looks like. I know it sounds scary. That's one thing I do think is the scarier it sounds, the more we are like drawn to it, but we are afraid of it. I think there's a stronger chance that it is from God. Like I know that before I started my business, it took me a long time. And God puts nuggets, He highlights things, He showed me the path a long time ago, and it took me a while before I started becoming obedient. Like I would do half steps and I would do things that were similar, but it wasn't exactly what He wanted from me. And when I started this whole concept of this path to growth, when I look at, okay, God, like this is the information you've given me. What does it mean? And then I started looking at who I am, what I've been through, what God's highlighted, my strengths, my weaknesses, my desires, my core avoidances, what I know to be true, what people come to me for. These are all concepts that pour into and highlight and give you this path of, well, of course this is the direction we're going. Of course, this is where we need to lead. And this is the step that I need to take. And one of the biggest things that I want to share with you today is that this path to growth isn't about perfection, isn't about knowing all of the answers or doing everything right. It isn't about being comfortable and joyful all the time, because it's not easy. But when is doing the easy thing worth it? Can you name a time that you took the easy road and like thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing? Can you name a time that you worked towards something? You got it, or something or you got something better. I love God's like this or better. We have Breck or better. I just got down from the mountains. I just went and spent a couple days in Colorado, and it's one of those things that we enjoyed walking around the mountains. The mountains are my happy place. And I'm like, okay, Lord, Breck or better, Vail or better, Colorado or better. Like, give me these mountains or better, this path to growth. And it's just this, they are like you put up some roadblocks, you put up some rumble strips, you put up some blocks, you put up some boundaries, you put up some priorities, you ensure that your core values, your priorities, your time management, your energy is all protected as you walk this path to growth, this path towards becoming who you were called to be. I was reading and listening to a book. I don't remember which one it was, because I listened to several of them as I was driving back. But it talked about how your personality is separate from your identity. And at first I was like, well, I don't really know. And then I don't really know if I agree with that. And then I started praying about it, started thinking about it, and I'm like, no, it's true, because your personality, like who you are, who God created you to be, we can shift elements of our personality in order to align with it. I have become a lot more bold and I don't want to say confrontational, but I'm willing to confront things in myself and in others more. That's part of learning to be a coach. It's all about, hey, is this something that you really want? I'm learned to stand up for myself more. I learned to, there's things about my personality that have shifted. I'm not as shy as I used to be. I'm not as quick to speak, which is odd since I'm, doing a podcast and I talk all the time, but it's the whole idea of I've shifted. The more I know, the more I grow. And I don't, not everything that I read do I take to heart. I've actually read a couple of books recently that I really don't agree with. I like the idea of it, but I don't think it meshes well with who God wants me to be, or the direction, or just my faith in general. There's a couple of books that they're widely popular in the business world, and I see why. One of them, The Gap in the Gain. Like I get the concepts of it, but there's things in there that I don't believe align with the Christian faith, with my relationship with Jesus. And so as I'm thinking about that, it's like, okay, this before I knew more about how God wired me, I wouldn't have questioned. I wouldn't have been I wouldn't have gotten curious about it. I'm a lot more curious. So I do believe that our personality can shift and change as we grow, whereas identity, who God created us to be, doesn't. We uncover an additional element of it. We just uncover deeper parts, that we awaken parts of our identity that God created in us before we were even born. These things that He's asked us to do, He's created for us. He's laid out the path, before we were even born. And so where am I going with all of this? What is your path to growth? What parts of your identity do you want to explore more? What is the deep, unshakable thought that could only come from God, the Holy Spirit? Because you're like, if I had the choice, I would not think this. It would not be part of my decisions. There's a lot of things that I have done that I'm like, okay, God, I'm doing this because I'm being obedient, not because I want to, because this is not, it's not easy. It's not comfortable. It's not what I know to do. And He's like, well, good, do it anyway. And I'm like, okay. So this path to growth, what is yours? Have you discovered it? Have you actually intentionally asked God, okay, where am I going and how can I get there? Who do I want to be? What parts of my personality do I want to shift? Or I'm working on habits again. I've gotten out of my daily habits, and I was talking to my coach friend, and we were talking about how important it is that we go back to our daily habits, that life works better when we have these habits in place that we have crafted and we journaled about and prayed about and planned ahead. And so my path to growth is getting back to my morning routine, getting back to my evening routine, getting back to, the different ways, like going back. I'm actually going back to the way I used to do my quiet time like 10 years ago, because I miss that time. And so it's where I was doing chapter by chapter, and I would just focus on one chapter instead of a theme. And so I'm going back to that, and I'm excited about it. And part of my path to growth is realizing what worked in the past and what do I need to bring back, and what things are working now that I need to keep going, and what things are no longer serving me that I get to set down. These are some of the things that we explore in coaching and we explore in just with my clients, because the more we understand ourselves, the more we can see how God wired us, and we can say yes to things that are yeses and no's to no's, and we can pour our energy into this life of joy that we can really look forward to. And so, where can you start with all this? Where can you start with your path to growth? And well, I actually have an answer for you. Next week, I am doing a 5-day challenge. 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, Monday through Friday. We are going to join together. Get in the Facebook group. I will send you the link. We're going to do it on Zoom because I want to interact. I want to answer questions. I want to be there with you instead of just speaking to you, or like I am like a podcast. Like, I want to interact and I want to help you. And it's permission to pivot. We're going to look at the different things that and I'm in the car. Like, you think that I should have memorized like the second part of it, but it's like, if you're a Christian mom and you have this feeling that you need to do something different, that whether it's starting a business, whether it's starting a ministry, whether it's starting a book club, whether it's, you've had this feeling that there's something more that you need to do, that you need to address, this idea that there's something more for you, that you look back at the ambition you used to have before you have kids, and now you have older kids and you have more time, and you're like, okay, I can do something. If you want financial freedom and you want to start a side gig, if you love your job and you want a promotion, or you want to find a new way to feel fulfilled in it. This permission to pivot, we're really going to look at, how do we set down expectations? How do we make these small changes in our lives that are not drastic? Like, we're not talking about permission to pivot and throw everything away and move to Bali. We're not talking about changing our, doing a left flank and, throwing out everything we've been working for. But we are talking about identifying why we're working for it and what is it that we want. We're going to start identifying this path to growth that we're on and really look at, what do we want in life? How do we want to be spoken about towards the end of our life? What do we want our kids to know about us now? Because ladies, we are some strong women. We are some ambitious, and we're professional, we're educated, we're stubborn also, but we have these God dreams that if we don't start to step into them, our kids are going to get to the point where they're going to start getting those and hearing and feeling the God dream too, but they're not going to have evidence that it's possible. So even if you don't do it for yourself, do it for your kids. Like, this gnawing feeling, this unshakable thought that there's more. Come to my challenge, come and hang out with me. I'm also going to do it towards the end of August, but, and you can come to both. They'll be different because it's live, and we'll take it where it needs to go and where the Holy Spirit directs us. But I have been working on this, and these are the things that I have done. These are the mindset shifts. These are the changes that I have. These are the pivots that I've made in my life to get to me to where I am, to where I have a business that I absolutely love, and I'm making an impact. I am growing personally. I'm inspiring others. My path to growth, financially free, and I can make my own choices. I went to the mountains, and for a couple of days, I didn't do anything. And then a couple of days I sat out and I read, or I wrote while I was sitting in the mountains. Like, I have the privilege and the time freedom to do that. If I wouldn't have discovered my path to growth, if I wouldn't have answered the call when God said, hey, I need someone to do this, and I say, okay, Lord, here I am, send me, I wouldn't be where I am. I would be where I was 10 years ago, and where I just wished for something more. I wished to be more in control, or have more of a decision, a decisive factor in my life, instead of just allowing grief to control it, which it needed to protect me at that time, and it no longer needs to protect me. What needed to protect you for a while, but now you're ready to set down that protective armor. Give yourself permission to make a change and go for something that's in your heart. That's what we're going to go with. That's what we're going to talk about. That's what we're going to do. And I cannot wait to do that with you. the Facebook group, Divine Destiny, Living a Purpose-Aligned Life. Go in there. It's in the show notes. Go in there and let's chat. Let's talk about it. I'll put the link for the Zoom link in there so that way you can join me. If you can't, there's going to be a replay, but like come live, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, set the time aside, 30, 45 minutes. Like I won't keep it too long. However, what if your whole life can shift and pivot and change and all of a sudden you get to be who you're called to be? What's that worth to you? So anyway, all right, with that, friend, I'm going to close, and I just want you to know that I appreciate you and that I'm praying for you. And I just want to say thank you for listening, for sharing this podcast. One of my goals this year is to grow this podcast. I have been, by God's grace, pretty much since the beginning of my podcast, I've been ranked in the top 2% of the world, and I really would like to get to the top 1%. So in order to do that, I do need your help. So if you can, leave me a rating and review. If you have not, it means so much to me. I appreciate it. I read them all, and words of affirmation are my love language, and it makes me know that this matters to you. And then also, if you can go on Instagram, if you can go on Facebook, if you can tell your friends, like text them the link to this podcast and share it with a woman who you know has a lot of impact to make. That you know she has a God dream inside of her that she has not started to explore, that she has that she's got strengths that the world needs. If you can send this podcast to her, encourage her to listen and encourage her to share it as well, then we can do this together. And as I'm thinking about the impact and what's the purpose of growing and asking this favor, and it's like, well, when we do things like this together, and when we shine our light and we're stepping into the impact that God has for us, this obedience, then others can do it as well. That it gives them the encouragement, the desire, they realize that they're not weird, or they're not, even though they have this thing that no one understands. And so if you would be willing to do that, I would appreciate it. Screenshot listening to this episode and put in your stories, tag me, do all the things. I don't even know how to do all of that, but I know you do. And let's grow together. Let's create this path to growth for each of us and start to live this dream that God has for us. All right, friend, choose joy until joy chooses you, and I will see you again soon. Well, I'll see you next on Monday, right? I'll see you live at the Permission to Pivot Challenge. So see you soon. Bye.